Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective. We're here with Avid's Ray Thompson. Ray, welcome.
Thank you, Randy. Thanks for having me today. And I'm Ray Thompson. I'm Senior Director here at Avid for Partner and Industry Marketing.
Well, thanks for coming because there's a lot to talk about. Not only has the world and the industry changed quite a bit in the last 18 months, I know that Avid has made a lot of announcements and adjusted some of the products that they've been offering for people. So let's just go back in time just a little bit. When things slowed down and shut down, how did Avid adapt to the way that they were making and providing products to the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when certainly the pandemic hit, in the immediate aftermath of really the lockdowns, the first thing that became a priority for everybody was enabling business continuity and specifically enabling folks to work from home. And so we spent, I think, just months and months afterwards really helping customers more or less take advantage of oftentimes investments they'd already made in virtualized environments and even in sort of cloud versions of Media Composer, to then go ahead and enable folks to basically be set up at home and access on-prem environments. And there are different ways in which they could do that. We mostly worked with like Teradici, but certainly RGS and HP was certainly one of the other more popular ways in which people accessed on-prem resources from home. And I think the biggest thing that sort of then slowly started to come out of that was the fact that I think people were really impressed, quite honestly, with how well they could actually work from home. I think people were just pleasantly surprised in a lot of ways that they could edit from home and do so extremely reliably and also very securely, right? And so I think that was probably one of the bigger things that sort of started to emerge, within a few months, probably 6 months or so after people had the opportunity to spend quality time right in front of their systems at home, right? And then go ahead and pivot. And then, of course, the other big thing that happened as a net result of the lockdown was that, pre-pandemic, we were obviously investing in solutions that were running in the cloud, right? Avid had already announced a pretty big partnership with Microsoft, and we were already pretty well down the path with both what we were calling custom cloud deployments, right? That sort of spoke to a variety of different, more complex challenges that some larger media enterprises were trying to tackle, while at the same time rolling out our first SaaS offering, which was called Edit on Demand, which is really targeting offline editing in the cloud. And it was a turnkey system that basically auto-provisioned everything you needed in the cloud, including Media Composer workstations, running on VMs inside of Azure, and then, of course, the Access file system sitting on top of Azure Blob Storage. And so we had to announce that actually in 2019 at IBC, and we made it available to a number of folks. And what happened was once the pandemic hit, we kind of had people fall into two buckets. We had folks who immediately turned to remote access of on-prem resources from home. And then we had another group that really sort of tended towards, I was already thinking about going to the cloud. I'm going to give this cloud thing a real try, and Edit on Demand somewhat serendipitously was sort of positioned at the time to sort of take advantage of that climate, right, and what was going on. And what that did was a couple of things. One, we've all read about how the acceleration to the cloud is happening now as a net result of everything that's gone on, and there's been so many things, and that's true. I mean, we've seen that ourselves. Avid, of course, had to pivot as well. Like I said, while we were certainly investing in technologies that were cloud technologies, I think that once the pandemic hit and we started to see the reaction from customers as to how well it was actually working for everybody, we also pivoted as a company and really started putting more and more resources on the cloudification, if you will, of the various different tool sets that Avid can bring to bear in order to facilitate as much of that process as possible in the cloud. And so now you're seeing a lot of hybrid environments, certainly now. And I think you're seeing a sort of gravitation towards as a service. And again, that's another big change for media companies. They were so used to the CapEx universe, right? I invest a bunch of money, and then that investment's made, and I use it for a number of years, right? And that's that, right? And I only add what else I ever need over that time frame. Whereas as a service thing, people weren't super thrilled with. I remember before the pandemic and after the pandemic, after people kind of got a taste of the fact that you could actually spin up something in the cloud, use it, and then spin it back down and only pay for what you used. I think people are like, wow, that's actually a pretty good thing. So so there's been a lot of change that's happened, of course, and it continues. I feel like actually, if anything, it's accelerating even faster. Things are just coming at you now, even more so than maybe they had pre all this happening.
Yeah, agree. And I know that you guys talk to your users a lot. What have you been hearing? Are they going to go back to the office? Are they going to be working from home? Is it going to be a hybrid sort of model? What is it that they want?
Yeah, it's funny. I think for news, I think a lot of news organizations have already returned to somewhat normal, while at the same time taking advantage of lessons learned during the pandemic for enabling remote workforce and a distributed workforce, right? And putting resources that are out in the field and just kind of being like, here, you already have all the tools now to really basically work from anywhere. And at the same time, bring back a bigger audience. Whereas in post, we found that there was this big battle always, right, in post production, whether it be television or film, where folks spent considerable amounts of time in a brick and mortar facility in a room with no windows, right, editing for months and months on end, and working crazy hours. And while I think they're still doing those things, they're doing a lot of that though now from home. And so they've eliminated, I think, that sort of a commute, right, which, as we all know, certainly in some of these areas like LA is terrible. And then they've also embraced the distributed workforce, and they've tried to now invest further in technologies that can even make that experience even better. So it's been a little bit of a mix, but I would say hybrid for sure. I think people are definitely gravitating towards a hybrid play, understanding more about what it means to the organization, both operationally and economically, in terms of the move forward. Again, given lessons learned during the pandemic. But I would say for the most part, people are really embracing things that I think before all this started, they were sort of reticent to embrace. And now it's completely changed. I mean, people have really changed their attitudes, and it's good. I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. And this is actually a pretty good place to talk about what MediaCentral Streams is, and because that does fit into this conversation.
It does, yeah. So MediaCentral Stream, again, was one of those things we were starting to work on before all the craziness started. But one of the things that was kind of a bit of a hole, I should say, in Avid's portfolio was our ability to ingest incoming IP streams. Certainly, the adoption of IP in general for both contribution and distribution has been going on for quite some time. And there's a whole host of players that are out there that offer either some type of bonded cellular solution like a live view or a TVU networks or something along those lines, or different protocols like the SRT protocol from Haivision, which is an open source protocol that's been built into now well over 500 plus companies, including cameras, encoders, decoders, mobile devices, and apps. And what that really affords is sort of this Internet of Things approach to being able to contribute content either to an on-prem environment or into the cloud, or both, using pretty much any device, right? And that, I think, combined with sort of the rollout of 5G, I think you're going to see a continued acceleration around using the commodity internet for basically either live shoots out in the field, for news and sports. Remote live productions are going to continue to be centralized, which will cut down the cost significantly for sending far more bodies out in the field the way you used to have to do in the old sort of world, the old SDI world. And MediaCentral Stream can take in all of these different feeds, right? And we can basically put it into Avid friendly formats. And for folks who are used to using Avid tool sets, downstream, nothing changes for them, right? They're still doing edit while capture workflows, and they're still using editing a growing file, right? And so they can turn around content very quickly. They can deliver to linear or digital broadcasts, very, very quickly. And that's really what MediaCentral Stream enables. And it's a software only solution, which is kind of different for Avid too, right? We have a history of creating video servers. The airspeeds, many of which are still out there today, and then fast serve stream, which was sort of the next version of airspeed. So we've got a long history there of delivering those types of solutions, but this is a software only tool set, and it can run on a VM, which allows you to deploy it either on-prem or in the cloud.
Gotcha. Now, switching gears for a minute, you guys recently, very recently, introduced something for disaster recovery and backup. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so this is something that's been added to MediaCentral Cloud UX. And what this allows for is folks to basically easily sort of do backups either to other systems that are sitting in the same facility, or do so to other systems that may be sitting at another facility thousands of miles away. And so it's something that has been a big request for customers for a long time. And because you're accessing everything from the same user interface, which is this MediaCentral Cloud UX, which we had rolled out, many years ago, it really gives you sort of one sort of user interface, which is a browser-based UI to manage all these different functions. MediaCentral Cloud UX is taking an app-based approach, so you basically pick the apps that you need in order to manage a workflow, whether it be for news or sports. Or even live scenarios. And by adding this other component, you can now do a lot of this replication and archiving right within the same environment, right? And so that's the big ad here recently from MediaCentral.
Fantastic. Well, any other news before I let you go that you should share, or do you want to point people to your website to find out more, where they could get tutorials, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so definitely go to avid.com and check out the MediaCentral area, or you can check out MediaCentral Stream up there as well, which is in the video servers section that's available from the main menu. And yeah, I would say, going forward, look for more, cloud tool sets, SaaS offerings, and tool sets that basically make it easy to do either contribution into an on-prem or a cloud environment, or distribution from a cloud or on-prem environment from Avid. So we're just trying to make it much easier for folks to embrace these different deployment models and essentially achieve their goals.